At the beginning of the film, two Russian mafia goons were trying to run away with a suitcase, but in the end, both of them were caught. One of the Russian mafia goons was Yuri Dubkova, the son of the leader of the Russian mafia named Arkady Dubkova. Yuri and his friend were interrogated and tortured by American gangsters who were targeting the suitcase. One of the gangster leaders is Boka. He asked Yuri where the key to the suitcase was, but Yuri didn't want to tell anything, so he stabbed Yuri's friend to make him open his mouth. After Yuri was searched, Boka finally found the key, but somehow, the key didn't match to the suitcase. It turned out that Yuri had replaced the suitcase with a decoy. The scene moved to the headquarters of the American gangsters, where Yuri was taken and tortured by them. Shortly thereafter, the leader of the American gangsters named Ray Baron came. He asked Yuri where the suitcase was in exchange for him sparing Yuri's life. Hearing that, Yuri finally told him that he kept the suitcase in one of the headquarters of the Russian mafia, but unlucky for Yuri, Baron was lying to him. He said that he would spare his life just for the day. The next day, Yuri's friend's dead body was seen dumped in the middle of the road. A detective named James Walsh. He assumed that the case could be about a common street mugging, but his senior, Detective Blake, didn't agree with his assumption. Blake believed that this case was a murder case. He then approached a senior police officer named Ed Dobbs to ask him for advice, but Ed said that Blake was better at analyzing cases than him. The scene moved to a former special force named Marcus Lombardi. He lived with his younger sister, Raina Lombardi, whom he loved so much. She complained to Marcus about their finances. Moreover, it's been a long time since he was unemployed and stayed at home all day. Marcus told her not to worry because it turned out that someone had given him a job and they were going to meet. Turned out, he was given a job by the American gangsters. Boka, as co-leader of the gangster, immediately brought Marcus to the leader, Baron, who said that his purpose in calling Marcus was to offer Marcus a job to take a suitcase at one of the headquarters of the Russian mafia. Hearing this, Marcus was a little doubtful because he understood that well how tight the security there was. But after he was promised $2 million worth of money, he accepted the job unhesitantly. On his mission, Marcus first went to one of his friends who was a hacker named Augie Riggs. He asked Augie to help him steal the suitcase that his boss, the American gangster leader, wanted. He also promised a lot of money to him and managed to get him on his team in the end. Long story short, Marcus began his mission infiltrating the Russian mafia headquarters. Guided by Augie, Marcus managed to one by one paralyze all the guards there until finally, he managed to take the suitcase. After completing his mission, Marcus contacted Baron to ask him to meet. Baron asked him to meet him at a warehouse on the outskirts of town. Hearing this, Marcus immediately went there. When Marcus arrived, he was surprised to find Ed there waiting for him. While pointing his gun at Marcus, he told Marcus to open the trunk of one of the cars in that place. It turned out that Yuri was lying there dying. Without any hesitation, Ed shot Yuri to meet his death.
Don't move.
The fact was Ed had conspired with Baron to frame Marcus, and considering that Yuri was the son of the Russian mafia leader, the second they found out that Marcus had killed Yuri, his son, he would send all his men to hunt for Marcus while both Ed and Baron would be able to get out of problem unharmed. Realizing the situation, Marcus tried to beat Ed and run away with the suitcase, but unfortunately, when he was about to get away, Blake and James showed up and tried to catch him. He managed to get away from James, but shortly after, he was cornered by Blake. Marcus tried to explain the whole situation. He said that he was framed by Ed, but Blake, who had known Ed for so long, didn't believe him one bit. Marcus then fought Blake to get away from him and managed to escape with the suitcase. Unfortunately, at the same time, Boka, the American gangster, had managed to kidnap Marcus's sister and took her hostage. Somewhere else, the Russian mafia leader, who is also Yuri's father, Arkady, was visited by Ed. Ed told him that Yuri was found dead and he suspected Marcus was the man behind the murder. He even said that Marcus had infiltrated one of the Russian headquarters. When Ed left, Arkady immediately ordered his man to tell all his men to hunt Marcus. He said that whoever managed to find Marcus, dead or alive, would be granted $2 million. On the other hand, Marcus contacted Baron. He asked Baron's intention in framing him for the murder of Yuri. Baron then told him that apparently, his gangster was not strong enough to take care of the Russian mafia, and so, he deliberately scapegoated Marcus to get away from the problem. He then told Marcus to give the suitcase that he took from the headquarters before in exchange for his sister's life that he had kidnapped. After that, Marcus returned to Augie to ask for his help again. Augie said that the hitmen were now looking for Marcus because Arkady had put a bounty on his head for killing his son. Augie, who couldn't do much, suggested Marcus meet their friend named Doc because he seemed to be more experienced in this matter. When Marcus arrived at Doc's place, he immediately told Doc what happened and asked for his help. After Doc agreed to his request, he immediately went out to contact Blake and told him that he wanted to meet him the next day at exactly 8 a.m. After Marcus hung up the call, Blake gathered all his men including James and Ed in his office. He told them that Marcus wanted to meet him the next day. Long story short, the next day, while being monitored by Doc, Marcus had a meeting with Blake and his men. There, Marcus asked the police to come with him. He also told Ed to wait in the car and not to follow the others. Marcus took Blake, James, and 2 of his subordinates to Doc's residence and then gave them a suitcase that Baron, the head of the American gangster, really wanted. Because his sister's life depended on the suitcase, Marcus told Blake to handcuff the suitcase with one of his men's arms to make sure it was safe. Marcus also said to be careful with Ed, but Blake replied that they shouldn't be afraid of him since he was too old and powerless if he was indeed a traitor. Blake's subordinates then left the place along with Ed, who offered to take them back to the police station. Marcus also turned himself down and believed in the police to save his sister. Moreover, he was targeted by some hitmen. But when James was about to handcuff Marcus, someone bombarded them with bullets. Turned out it was one of the hitmen sent by Arkady that were targeting Marcus. When the hitman thought that he had managed to corner Marcus, he was caught off guard and attacked by Marcus. Finally, Marcus was able to finish off one of the hitmen targeting him. Somewhere else, Ed, who brought Blake's subordinates with him, suddenly stopped in the middle of their way. It turned out he brought the suitcase right to Boca. Surprisingly, one of Blake's subordinates named Officer Ellen Burke turned out to be the traitor, the same as Ed. She was ordered to kill Ed, whom Baron didn't need anymore. She immediately took the suitcase with her. On the other hand, a woman entered Doc's residence and took him hostage. Turned out she was a hit woman that was also targeting Marcus. He took Doc to corner Marcus. Afraid that she would harm Doc, Marcus decided to turn himself down, but suddenly, a grenade came out of nowhere and exploded. Turned out, another 2 hitmen showed up. Fight between them was inevitable. Assisted by Doc, Marcus tried to beat all 3 hitmen targeting him. The 2 hitman brothers somehow fell into Doc's trap and were blown away while Marcus managed to finish off the hit woman. After that, Marcus, accompanied by James and Blake, approached Ed, who was dying beside his car. Ed apologized to Blake for betraying the police. Before he died, Ed told Marcus about her sister's whereabouts and gave evidence about Baron's crime. Knowing that, Marcus immediately went to save his sister. On the other hand, Ellen met Baron to hand over the suitcase and asked for compensation for her work, but instead of getting paid for her work, she was immediately killed.
Watch me. Now you're gonna realize.
At the same time, Marcus went to the place where Baron held his sister. He killed the gangsters who were keeping guards in that place and finally met his sister, but just before he was about to run away from that place, Boca and one of his men showed up. Marcus immediately gave his gun to his sister and told her to run away while he would face Boca and his gun. Marcus lured them so that his sister could leave the place without their notice. With his experience as a former special force, Marcus managed to finish them both. That night Blake met Baron. He said that he already had a lot of evidence regarding all his crimes. With all the evidence that Blake had, Baron couldn't do anything but turn himself down. On the other hand, Marcus had arrived home. He told his sister that he would finish everything because Arkady's hitman would hunt him whenever he was unless he told the truth. Marcus then came to Arkady's place all by himself. There, Marcus explained that Yuri's killer was apparently Ed, the senior police officer. Initially, Arkady didn't believe him, but after he gave the voice record between Ed and Baron, he finally trusted Marcus. With his pride as a mafia leader, Arkady gave the $2 million to Marcus for coming to his place and telling the truth all by himself. Before leaving, Arkady told Marcus that no matter where, Arkady and his men would hunt for Baron, even if it is inside the prison. Marcus did not forget his friend's help. He shared the money with Doc and Augie for their help. In the end, Marcus and his sister opened a restaurant business with the money he got from Arkady.